Glad you could join us. As always, we are with Greg Engert, beer director for the Neighborhood Restaurant Group, which includes where we are, back at Church Key, downstairs, of course, Birch and Barley. Rustico, 2 locations, the Evening Star Cafe, among the many great restaurants in the group. Greg is a Sommelier of the Year from Food Wine, a James Beard nominee. What's on tap this week?
Well, this week we are going to do a beautiful beer from Nøgne Ø, one of the preeminent craft brewers coming out of Grimstad in the southern tip of Norway. We actually hosted Kjetil, who is the founder of Nøgne Ø, last Wednesday for a wonderful beer dinner downstairs at Birch and Barley, but we also featured 19 of his beers on draft, and we actually still have all of them pouring currently.
And beer of the week came for the, I twisted my own arm, we came for that beer dinner last Wednesday night, and the food downstairs was great, and the beers, they're all good. They're
amazing, and it's a great story, too. I mean, we're drinking one of the newest ones right now. It's called Single Hop Citra IPA from Nøgne Ø out of Norway, and but classically speaking, they just kind of brew solid beers. I mean, they're known for a wonderfully sessionable brown ale, a beautiful porter, a pale ale. They have some more experimental things, but some imperial stouts and things like that. Very influenced by the American brewing tradition, and that's because Kjetil, before his life in craft beer, as a brewery owner, he was actually a Scandinavian airline pilot for 23 years or something like that.
Talented fellow.
Talented indeed. So he actually fell in love with craft beer by visiting the United States, D.C. on many occasions. He used to go to the Brickskeller and Chevy Chase Liquors, but primarily his exploits in the Pacific Northwest. That's where he started drinking really beautiful IPAs, hoppy styles coming from up there. Fell in love with it so much so that he actually started bringing home brewing supplies back, home brewed forever, and then finally decided that Norwegians deserve some great local beer, and they started out. And, his business survived on the pallets of the export market for so long. He was telling me that forever and ever they were doing 75% sales outside of Norway just because they hadn't caught up in Norway, still kind of drinking just the fizzy yellow macro lagers. But great news to report is that has shifted, and they're only doing 25% outside of Norway now. So the Norwegians are jumping in line much the way the rest of the globe has for some time.
They're educating their fellow countrymen and women.
It's crazy, and it's cool. It's nice that he kind of pays homage to the American craft brewing scene through his beers. And one of the best things, he is the tagline to Nøgne Ø is, I'm going to butcher this because I don't speak Norwegian, is Det kompromissløse bryggeri, which means the uncompromising brewery. And I think that they might be the most uncompromising. They literally they think that the brewers should brew the beers that they like to drink. Marketing should not be an issue at all. It's just, we're making great beers. We hope people want to buy them. They're not getting out there and trying to figure out what's a cool beer to make, what people are looking for. Even in the case of this beer, which is a single hop beer, meaning that it's only hopped with one kind of hop, Pacific Northwest American Citra hops, which, as the name suggests, are very citric, but they're also quite bitter. Typically, when you do this, you let the malt be very mild. You want just to taste that hop. So he's kind of spinning and playing with that expectation with this beer because it's actually more of an English-style IPA. It's more balanced, it's more malty, and not as just pungently Citra in the nose. So he almost kind of finds, because single hop IPAs have been big recently, everybody seems to make them. He's kind of playing with that expectation and saying, yeah, I know it's popular to make them now. We're going to make it, but we're going to make a wonderful beer. We're going to care as much about the English Maris Otter malt that they're using, which gives it great toasty sweetness, as we do the Citra hop.
Okay. Great color.
And you'll see, having not tapped these too long ago, they don't filter any of their beers. Obviously, don't pasteurize their beers. So the longer the keg will be on draft, it'll actually drop brighter. When we first tapped it, it was much cloudier than it is here. It's starting to clear up. But we kind of got these kegs in from overseas and just hooked them up immediately, so they're a little agitated. That's why it's a little hazy.
And you do get some of the citrus, but is that, I don't want to get, but I'm tasting a little bit of grain cereal.
Totally.
Right? Okay.
It's unbelievable, and that's my point about it. It's like, you'd think this is just going to be a hop, bitter explosion in your mouth, but he uses this really awesome English malt. It's Maris Otter malt, which is prized because mostly because it's floor malted. Typically today, malting is done by these giant malt houses, but floor malting is the old idea where literally a small maltster will be raking grain as it's drying during the malting process. And so as you do this, you evenly distribute the heat so that you get a fuller, kind of more round, grainy, cereal-like, biscuity quality in the beer.
Now, a couple things he mentioned last night that he said a lot of things that were interesting. We could spend half an hour talking about it. One thing was, he said they try to make a beer that you will enjoy from start to finish. And I'd never really heard anyone say that before because, I mean, I think everybody wants to enjoy it from start to finish. But he was talking about how some beer tasters, they just take a little sample and try it. So they might get a certain thing at the one taste, but they're not going to experience the flavor as it might evolve going down.
Absolutely.
Right?
What we call that is the ticker culture. These are a group of people that kind of just, they rate their beers a lot on certain websites online and things like that, and they literally will just get a small bottle of something very rare, split it among 6 people, they all just drink like a teaspoon of it, and write down their notes and then move on. It's for these types of drinkers, it's all about what's new, what's cool, what's rare. But you're right, what they miss with that, and I think his comments are in reaction to that culture, because he's saying this beer is obviously going to change as it diminishes, because it is complex. The temperatures change, the aromas will change. You'll find something new each time you go back to the glass. That's why what makes great wine great, what makes great beer great, is that it's going to evolve as you drink it. Your palate's going to evolve as you're drinking it, and you get to consider it all the way. The other thing that they're really big into is food pairing. So, I mean, if you just have
as you are.
Yeah, I am too. We're a natural match. So, he's not going to encourage somebody to just be ticking off beers. If you have a wonderful squab dish like we did at the dinner, unless you have a tablespoon of squab and a tablespoon of beer, you're not going to get the pairing. You need to have at least 4-6 ounces of the beer to really experience it on its own and with the food as well.
And I'm jumping all over the place here, but also he talked about, I have a friend who's a craft brewer in Washington State, and sometimes he needs to order his hops, very early in the year. They'll run out. If you are a brewer in Florida, you might order your stuff from a brewery supplier in the Midwest. But he had to import everything, every single thing, which which is an interesting part of their story too.
And also adds extremely to the price of the beer. And that's the thing about these beers. I have to be honest, they are expensive. And most people would think, it's just because, it's obviously shipping from Norway, which makes it expensive. The importer takes a cut, the distributor does, and then the restaurant or the store does. But what's even more important is having to import all of the stuff. I mean, if you're in the Pacific Northwest, to your point, he can buy hops, but it's not coming from that far away.
Right.
The shipping costs on these ingredients are insane. So, but they're well worth it. And that's the thing, even though beer can be expensive like that, you might not drink it every day, but you shouldn't stay away from it. I mean, there are flavors you'll find in these beers that are not available in other beers. So it's a cool treat to treat yourself to.
Yeah, your kids don't need to go to college.
Right, exactly.
But before I forget, let's talk a little bit about what this is good to pair with. It was great what they did last Wednesday night.
We did it with some cheese, actually, because it was kind of a fun thing. We had 3 different cheeses with 3 different kind of hoppy beers.
And I have a picture of that sample. We'll put that up here so you can take a look at it. But yeah,
the thing is, with this one, actually, because it's hoppy, but it's not too hoppy. It's got some sweetness. This is a great beer for a lot of things. Now, you're going to need a little bit richness to handle the bitterness, but that toasted kind of cereal grain sweetness lends itself to so many things. So you can do this with all manner of barbecue stuff, pub grub. This can go as well with like fish and chips as it can with hot dogs on the grill. Because it's got that beautiful sweetness that's gonna go excellently with the fry on the fish, and of course the starchy sweetness of the fries on the side.
Even malt vinegar.
Malt vinegar even would work well with it too, and just enough bitterness, but not so much is going to overwhelm anything. So this is definitely like a beautiful beer for anything you're going to order at a bar.
Okay. Well, people can check out the Birch and Barley and Church Key website for similar dinners like the one this week coming up later in the year.
Absolutely.
Greg, thanks as always.
Thank you.
I'm Brennan Haselton. Please remember to drink responsibly and bring your thirst next time for another Beer of the Week.